Namaskaram, Namaskar, good day, all of you. Thank you, organizers, for selecting this topic and giving this opportunity to speak to you all today. World is witnessing a serious challenge. The challenge arising out of changing climate and global warming. This has now been clearly understood to be due to the excessive greenhouse gas emissions, especially from the last 100 to 150 years of post-industrialization era. In this period, there has been excessive greenhouse gas emissions from all sectors of life. And this greenhouse gas emissions, if you look at, almost 75% of it, 3/4 of it has come from carbon dioxide. Well, in the 100 to 150 years, global energy consumption has gone up by almost 25 times, and so the greenhouse gas emissions also. If we see the global energy scenario, I said about 70% is due to fossil fuels, and almost 3/4 of it is coming from carbon dioxide. And India is only the third largest emitter in the whole world, only to be led by China and United States, contributing 7% of greenhouse gas emissions. As I said, all sectors are contributing to this, and power sector is the biggest contributor at about 25 to 26%, followed by agriculture and forestry, automobile and industry. When we talk about decarbonizing, all sectors require attention. Indian scenario is also not different. Here again, about more than 60% of the energy is produced out of fossil fuels. The only silver lining is that our renewable energy sector is growing fast. It is contributing about 100 gigahertz of energy power as on today, and it is about 26%. Well, when we think of decarbonizing, there are various technologies we can think of. Fossil fuel obviously tops the carbon emission, and on the bottom it comes renewable energy, and that is the reason the entire world is looking at renewable energy as the solution for this big problem what we discussed in the morning. Now, how we address this problem? If you look at Indian scenario, we are really progressing on the renewable energy. We have a very ambitious target of cutting down carbon emission by 30 to 35% by 2030. We are very well marching towards that. We have made rapid progress in renewable energy, and we have already made 100 gigahertz, and we are heading towards 175 gigahertz by 2022 and 450 gigahertz by 2030, and we are going to achieve more than 1000 gigahertz by 2040. If you look at the percentage share of renewable energy, by 2030 we are likely to be around 50% and 50 to 60%, and by 2040 it could be around 70% of the total installed power capacity in the country. Certainly this is going to give us a lot of advantage in terms of decarbonizing. However, this is going to be a big challenge and of course a big opportunity for power sector. When we have renewable energy, as we know, it has a lot of variability associated with it. Sun doesn't shine always, wind doesn't blow always. How we take into account? This brings in a lot of variability. The present state of about 5% variation, it can go up to by about 4 to 5 times to the 20 to 25% or even more. So this requires a very careful management of the grid. So this is the problem that we have to address. Apart from that, there is a question of curtailment of peak power. Of course, though we have this installed capacity, the entire power we are not able to harness, as there is no demand when there is a peak power production. There is also a question of meeting the peak demand when there is no production. These are characteristic problems associated with renewable energy. How this is going to be addressed? One solution that we can think of is keeping certain coal power plants in standby mode and ramping up and down, but this is going to create load of inefficiencies in these technologies, and of course it can offset the carbon advantage that we may get by going for renewable energy. So it cannot be a grand solution to this problem. Of course, the other problem is to think of storing the energy in a storage system. How do we imagine a storage system of grid scale energy? There are well-known systems such as pumped hydro, compressed air. Of course, battery is a well-known storage system, and there comes a new system called hydrogen. Coming to the first two, it has got a very specificity with respect to the geography and the environment. So it cannot be a general solution for all the regions of the country, and even not for all the countries too. Battery is generally suited for kilowatt to maybe maximum megawatt capacity, and also there are questions of life, material availability and so on. Coming to hydrogen, why hydrogen? We know hydrogen is a fuel with very high calorific value, and more importantly, it is a clean fuel. It is a carbon free fuel, maybe the only carbon free fuel we can think of, but it's not abundantly available. So it brings us to the point that we have to spend energy to create hydrogen. Today, there are about 100 megaton of tons of hydrogen being used for various applications other than energy. It is used in refineries, it is used in chemical industries, in steel industries and so on. However, the entire hydrogen, almost 95% of this hydrogen is coming out of hydrocarbons. Almost 6% of natural gas supply of today is going for hydrogen production, and about 2% of coal supply is going for hydrogen production. So this hydrogen certainly cannot be considered clean, as it is associated with carbon emission. What is the carbon free form of hydrogen production? It is the good old, the reaction, the simplest of the reactions we can think of, nothing but the water electrolysis. We can think of using renewable energy to split water to form hydrogen, and this hydrogen can be stored as a high energy fuel. It can be used in industries for chemical processing. It can be used in vehicles as fuel. So in one shot, the power sector with its renewable energy capability is able to take its power to various sectors as fuel, as a reactant, as electricity. And electrolyzer systems, water electrolysis systems are reasonably very well developed. They are scalable to kilowatt to megawatt level, even gigawatt level. They can produce pure hydrogen, which doesn't require any further finishing or polishing or purification. Another important factor one we have to consider is that this fuel can be pumped over long distances, and it has been studied and reported that this way of transmitting energy, instead of transmitting electricity, you can transmit fuel to the destination and you can convert it back to electricity. If it can be done, it has been studied and reported that the transmission loss associated could be significantly lower. Certainly, this is something very seriously it requires to be studied. Well, once hydrogen is available, there is a question of course, it can be used as a fuel, it can be used as a reactant for in process industries. How to convert it back to electricity? We have to really think of a technology which can convert it to the best possible way, the highest efficiency, because this is not a readily available fuel. This requires energy to be produced. So the technology to be used for converting it back to electricity also required to be highly sophisticated and highly efficient. It is here the less known fuel cells, but the emerging technology which is coming to our attention. Fuel cells are nothing but power devices which can convert chemical energy of a fuel directly to electrical energy. In that sense, it works just like a battery. and of course it employs electrochemical reactions like a battery. But unlike a battery, it doesn't get drained out. As long as reactant gases are pumped into it, for example, fuel, hydrogen is pumped into it, it can produce electric power. See, in that sense, it works as an engine. So it is a hybrid, an engine and a battery. So once you have such a system, this sophisticated hydrogen fuel can be, at a very high efficiency, it can be converted back to electric power. So you are producing hydrogen and you are generating electricity on one hand. You can use hydrogen as it is in process industries, and of course the hydrogen can be used as a fuel in automobiles. There are various types of fuel cell depending on the chemistry, the chemicals used, the temperature of operation, and so on. The proton exchange membrane fuel cell, which is reasonably popular these days, works probably at the lowest temperature. Around room temperature it can work, and maybe up to about 80 degrees. This gives a lot of benefits. You can have quick startup, shutdown, and it is very suitable for automobiles, even domestic purposes, households and apartments. There are other classes like alkaline fuel cell and phosphoric acid fuel cell, which generally works around 200 degrees to 50 degrees. And there are systems like molten carbonate fuel cells and solid oxide fuel cells, which generally operate at 600 degrees. Each of these have their own niche applications. As I said, the proton exchange membrane fuel cell, the PEM fuel cells, are more suitable for portable applications in the kilowatt, maybe up to megawatt range. Other fuel cells, which are generally at higher temperature, can also produce high quality heat, especially the molten carbonate and the solid oxide fuel cells. This gives it an added advantage of using electricity, heat also, apart from electricity, heat also as an output, and can enhance the efficiency still further. There are various systems in operation today. In fact, the very first fuel cell that was demonstrated way back in 1950s was an alkaline fuel cell by engineer Bacon. Subsequently, during Gemini mission during 66, PEM fuel cell was used. However, subsequently the famed space missions, Apollo, the moon mission, and the space shuttles, they used alkaline fuel cells very well, and has given significant publicity for fuel cell technology. These days, many distributed power systems are operating on high temperature fuel cells such as solid oxide, phosphoric acid fuel cell, and molten carbonate fuel cells. In fact, the biggest fuel cell in operation today in the world is working in South Korea. It is working on phosphoric acid fuel cells. So there are portable systems, there are automobiles working on fuel cells, there are distributed power systems working on. So we have a high efficiency power system capable of converting hydrogen to electricity. We have a mechanism to convert water into electricity using renewable energy, and marrying these two sophisticated technologies give us a way of implementing a clean energy cycle based economy, and this is what we call today as hydrogen economy. So we can take renewable energy, whether it is peak power or otherwise, it can be used for generating hydrogen. This hydrogen can be pumped into different destinations. It can be converted back to electricity. This electricity can be used in houses and apartments and hospitals and so on. It can be used for powering cities. It can be used for powering grid. The hydrogen can be directly used in vehicles, and vehicles can drive just the way the present day vehicles are going. And so this is going to be a clean energy cycle. It produces only water, and this water can be converted back. It is a self-sustaining energy cycle that we can think of. As I already indicated, there are a number of vehicles running around the globe, thousands of buses, cars and trucks running on hydrogen fuel with fuel cells as the engine. There are hundreds of hydrogen refueling stations around the globe. There are large number of distributed power systems from kilowatt to megawatt range of operating. It is reasonably well established, and it is growing exponentially. When we look at how power sector will really work in this scenario, really it is going to be a transformation for power sector. the renewable energy is going to be rapidly growing. This is going to give you the energy to produce hydrogen, so we can have hydrogen generation systems. This hydrogen, with this, power sector can have their own hydrogen generation systems. These hydrogen generation systems can produce hydrogen for chemical industries. This can be used in fuel cell power systems, produce electricity for various applications. Hydrogen can be used in industries, in automobiles. Multi-sector reach out. Power sector is now getting through this hydrogen energy. Certainly, it's going to be a very big opportunity as well as a challenge. And added to that, as it was already indicated, we may be able to achieve a lower, much lower transmission loss as well, if we can think of transporting hydrogen through pipelines. With this few words on hydrogen energy in general, hydrogen economy, let me conclude. This is going to be a big challenge and opportunity for power sector, and thank you all for watching this. Thank you very much.